The House Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Young,
Present.
Representatives Katia, Glanville,
Present.
Arbit,
Here.
Edwards,
Present.
McDonald,
Sorry.
Did you get the right name? 'Cause she said present for the wrong person.
okay, McDonald,
Present.
Wozniak,
Here.
Fox,
Identity first.
Yes, ma'am.
Johnson,
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Now I need to have a motion to approve the minutes of April 11th.
So moved.
All right, Representative Glanville approves the motion, the minutes. Okay, very good. Well, today, I think we have, do we have both of our sponsors here yet today, or just one? I see the senator. All right. Well, today we'll be hearing testimony on Senate Bills 137 and 138. The bills would expand eligibility for the Guardianship Assistance Program to children with guardianship orders from tribal courts and other states. The bill sponsors are Senator Jeff Irwin and Senator John DeMoose. With us today, we have Senator Irwin. Thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and committee members, for considering this bill in your committee today. Look, I know you're going to hear from some other advocates and stakeholders from our tribal communities and elsewhere, and I want to make sure that you have as much time to talk to them as possible, so I'll try to be brief. This bill came to us from initially some of the tribal concerns and communities. I had an opportunity to work on this with Senator Wayne Schmidt late last year, but we weren't able to get it done in time, so I was really proud to be able to work with Senator John DeMoose on this in a bipartisan way when this year got kicked off. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to just simply correct what we think is a problem in the law. Many years ago, the state created the program called the Guardianship Assistance Program. The idea is that when a family steps up and says, yes, we'll make a permanent home for this child, that if they're eligible for assistance, that they could get some assistance for the state to continue to care for that child. Presumably is coming out of foster care. But when we wrote that law many years before any of us got here, the law was written in such a way where it says that in order to be eligible for the Guardianship Assistance Program, your guardianship has to be ordered by a state court. Well, what we left out was tribal courts. And so the tribal communities came forward and said, look, given the history we have in this state with, state-sponsored efforts at cultural erasure, given all the efforts that the tribes have put in to try to make sure that tribal communities remain whole and that tribal children are brought into tribal communities as much as possible, given all of that, we think you ought to correct this. And myself and Senator DeMoose strongly agreed. We also heard from the department who pointed out that,
Hey, sorry.
Thanks for joining me. We also, reached out to the department about this, and they pointed out that the law also didn't cover guardianships that were effectuated by other states' courts. So if you look closely at the bill, you'll see that even though the main goal of this was to make sure that we plug this hole for our tribal communities, we also addressed that other issue of what if you've got a family whose guardianship was ordered by Alabama or Iowa or whatever. So basically, we just want to change the law so that all families who take on guardianships, who create a permanent home for these kids, are treated the same, whether or not their guardianship was effectuated by a tribal court, another state's court, or one of our courts here in Michigan. And so, Senator DeMoose, I just gave I think a description of what we're doing, and thanks for joining me. And if you mind, Madam Chair, if Senator
Please,
DeMoose.
please. I was waiting on Senator DeMoose to get here.
I'm sorry, I don't know how you got over faster than I. You're in better shape than I, supposedly, I guess. No, I will just say I'm thankful that Senator Irwin chose to include me in this because it's just something good and necessary. And we deal with a lot of bad news around here, and this is just something positive. I talked to our tribes up in Sault Ste. Marie and the various tribes I work with, and, this is really just about respecting their authority and the authority of their courts. That's what got me into this. And the fact that the state of Michigan hasn't respected it now, but that we're reaching out and saying, look, your rulings in this incredibly important issue matter, and they're just as valid as Michigan courts. I think it's just the right thing to do, and we all agree. Just studies have shown that being placed in guardianship often has better outcomes than foster care and these type of things. And this just allows a new group of people to be involved in that. So I'm glad to support it. Seems like common sense to me, but it also means a whole lot to the tribes who I've spoken to.
Thank you so much, Senator. Are there any questions from committee members? Gentlemen? No, Representative Thompson.
Hi, thank you so much, Representative Thompson. And I actually have a personal connection to this, so I just wanted to make a brief statement. So I am a Native American woman, I'm card-carrying Native, and my children are as well. Now that stopped at my grandchildren. We lost our daughter in a motorcycle accident in 2021, and we now have guardianship of our 3 grandchildren. So when we were going through the process within the courts in Michigan, one of the first things that they thought was going to be a hurdle was that they definitely wanted the tribal court to step in, and I just had to make it clear that my grandchildren, the bloodline did not extend to them. They do not have their status card. So the Michigan state courts are very active in making sure that they're protecting tribal courts and making sure that things are being done properly and respectfully. So to hear that you're making legislation that will help those families, I'm in great support of that, and I thank you for that. Touches me personally, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And thank you too, Senator, so much for your work on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes. And next up, I would like to bring forward Lorna Elliott Egan, our Director of Tribal Government Services and Policy at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So good to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. As the Chairwoman said, my name is Lorna Elliott Egan. I'm the Director of Tribal Government Services and Policy at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. I'm the department's primary liaison to our 12 federally recognized Indian tribes and Urban Indian Health Center in the Metro Detroit area. And I just want to say that I am grateful, and this work is an honor for me to be able to do it here at this department. Working with the tribes is very important to us over here. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services wholeheartedly supports Senate Bills 137 and 138. These bills were developed in partnership with the Tribal Children's Directors, staff, and tribal attorneys from the 12 federally recognized tribes. And this effort was initiated by the Bay Mills Indian community when they came to us and said, do you realize that tribal children placed by a tribal court are not eligible for the same kind of support? So currently, a Native child living on tribal land, their guardian isn't able to receive this kind of assistance. And the same child living off of a tribal reservation could get this assistance. So we really thought this was a matter of fairness. Just as an example, there is a family who has taken guardianship in the Bay Mills Indian community of 5 siblings. They can't get this help, and if you could just for a second try to imagine raising 5 children that you hadn't necessarily planned on having in your home without any kind of assistance to feed or clothe those little bodies. We think it's simply the right thing to do, and we believe that they should get the same kind of benefits that any other Michigan citizen child should be able to receive for this. I just want to say that the purpose of these assistance payments is to support the need of the youth while being cared for by a guardian, and usually it's a family member. And very often these cases are closed after a guardian takes this child in, and the child remains with them until they age out of the system at 18 years old. So it's a burden for the family. We just agree this is a matter of fairness, and we really want to thank the group of dedicated child protection professionals with the tribes that we worked with and the tribal attorneys to help us develop this language. And we want to thank Senators Irwin and DeMoose both for being willing to sponsor this legislation and move it forward. Wanted to just mention that as we did work with the tribes, we did survey them and found that there were, we estimate, much less than 100 children in guardianship care that would qualify for this assistance. So the fiscal impact is not particularly large. I just want to thank you for the opportunity again to come back here and say that Michigan Department of Health and Human Services strongly supports both of these pieces of legislation. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone's got.
Thank you so much for your testimony. It's always good when we have the department on our side. It makes our lives so much easier. And so if there are questions, I did see one hand real quick. Representative Wozniak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. If you find out that there's a tribal member in a regular court, not a tribal court, do you redirect them to a tribal court then?
So I'm not our department's expert in the Indian Child Welfare Act, but as a general rule, our department always tries to make something called active efforts to consult with every tribe if we determine that that child has Native American citizenship, tribal citizenship. And for one or two tribes, also that applies to descendants because we have a memorandum of understanding with that tribe. So we do work to make sure that these children are placed appropriately and follow the wishes of the tribe that that child belongs to whenever possible.
That's great. And do you have a navigator that people can look at?
I'm not sure what that means.
It tells people where they need to go or what to do?
So that I can't really answer that. I can tell you that we're redeveloping a website for the department because this office has been newly created. But the Children's Services staff in our department have ICWA training, Indian Child Welfare Act training, and they all know that they're supposed to be making those types of connections when they determine that a child is tribal.
Thank you for your information.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the director? Thank you so much for your testimony.
Chimigwich.
All right. Which means,
That means thank you very much, and
I just want to be certain. I don't want to assume anything.
That's what that means.
Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Jamie Stuck. Jamie Stuck is the chair of the United Tribes of Michigan and the Natawasapee, I knew I was going to do that, Huron Band of the Potawatomi. Thank you for joining us today.
Minawabin, that means good morning in our Potawatomi Moen. Madam Chair, Committee, thank you very much for giving me the honor to speak before you today. Currently, NHBP has just a little over 1,600 tribal members. And then, as stated earlier, we are affiliated with the United Tribes of Michigan. The Natawasapee Huron Men of the Potawatomi tribe, our modern day ties are in Battle Creek area, just a little southwest of Battle Creek area. We get the Huron from the Detroit, or from the Huron River in the Detroit area. Currently, we operate Firekeepers Casino as well as economic development in downtown Grand Rapids. We also provide all tribal nations with medical treatment in our downtown Grand Rapids facility. We actually serve more other tribes than we do our own people, so we invest in our people. United Tribes of Michigan is one of a kind that you'll find different from all the other states within the United States of America. The 12 sovereign nations within the United Tribes of Michigan are able to put aside issues and really concentrate on what's impacting our communities as a whole. Not only with the Line 5 matter, with our water rights, hunting and treaty rights, but the welfare of our children is very much a high priority, and we are just like to thank Senator Irwin and DeMoss for bringing this back, and also former Senator Schmidt, who is a big friend of ours. So I want to take the time to thank the senators for bringing this back. Also want to take this opportunity to thank the process. The tribes of the state of Michigan have been shown due diligence as far as being able to give our input, show our support or our non-support of these bills. The true consultation process as far as that government-to-government relationship was definitely adhered to during these due process hearings, and just want to take the opportunity to thank the state of Michigan for including us and allowing us a seat at the table. I want to take this time to recognize how these bills impact our communities. As stated before, it recognizes the eligibility of our tribal membership, our tribal minors. It takes into the account of our tribal court jurisdictions. It takes into account the organizations that are looking out for our children on our behalf for general welfare items that are impacting our youth. So all really good to include in a bill to ensure that the tribal community can unite to help decide what is best for our children and not leave it in the hands of someone else. I like how this bill allows for flexibility. It allows for the exhaustion of reuniting families together as well as adoption. Sometimes that's just not possible in our communities. The systematic historic trauma that was implemented on us back in the day has created a lot of issues in our communities that we're going to deal with for quite some time. And unfortunately, a lot of these issues impact our youth. I want to take the opportunity just to relay that our children, more than any other ethnic group, experiences adverse childhood experiences at percentages that are just off the chart. Not only that, our children are dealing with issues as far as domestic violence matters that are at a higher rate than any ethnic group, as well as behavioral health issues. We have generations and generations to repair still to this day because of these systematic ways of trying to demise our people and take them out of existence. This leaves the opportunity for family members to raise our children. It could be their grandmas, their grandfathers, their aunties, their uncles, their brothers or sisters. So a lot of people think that just because you're indigenous and you are an enrolled tribal member of a sovereign nation that you have this big pile of money that you're sitting on from the casinos. That's not the case with a lot of our tribes. And as stated earlier, 5 siblings in one household being raised by a fellow sibling can be drastically impacting on someone's economic security, and then being able to provide for all what these children need. So to include our tribal minors into this, whether they're in state or out of state, is very helpful because with our bands, we're spread out through the whole United States. We were actually removed from Michigan and forced out to Kansas. So we have relatives that live out in Kansas, Oklahoma, up in Wissahickon and Walpole Island First Nations in Canada. So there's a lot of different bands of Potawatomi that are in the United States of America, and this allows us to help out our fellow relatives in the circumstance that we need to help a child be put into a safe environment for their upbringing. I want to take this opportunity also to highlight what impact this will have as far as just recognizing tribes as sovereign nations and truly continuing that government-to-government relationship that we have with the state. And that's the important thing of this. We're not like a local municipality. We are our own sovereign nation, and we're very much capable of raising our children. We have established constitutions, codes, ordinances, and we also have established court systems. So we are very much intelligent enough to take care of our own people. I've been in this room and at times have been told by committee members of other committees that we're not capable. And to put us in that category is just insane. But I do appreciate this committee's opportunity for allowing me to speak on behalf of my tribe and on behalf of the United Tribes of Michigan. We look forward in any way of with the transition of these bills, as well as consultation. We're not just interested in pointing out the problems. We're very much interested in bringing solutions to the table so that we can live in a good, respectful way that's adherent to our traditions, values, culture, language, history, all that. So if there's anything else that we as United Tribes of Michigan can do to help out furthering this bill or with the implementation of this bill, you do have the support of all 12 sovereign nations on this matter. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and close respectfully. And if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions right now.
Thank you so much for your testimony on today. Know that you are valued. All 12, your sovereign nations are completely valued here, as well as your children. We take this work that we do really, really seriously. And this is a matter of common sense equity, in my opinion. And so I'm grateful for your testimony. I'm grateful for the bill sponsors. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Arbit?
I concur with what Madam Chair said, and I just want to say that I am sorry that previously that you have had experiences with members of this body, other committees that were condescending to you and the sovereign nations that overlap our state, and just want you to know that there is a new majority in Lansing, and we are here to support our indigenous nations in Michigan. So, thank you.
Miigwech.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next up on Zoom, I do believe we have someone that's joining us via Zoom, Whitney Gravel. Is Whitney here? Gravel?
Ani Bojo, can you hear me okay?
Ms. Gravel? Okay, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Good morning or good afternoon now, I suppose. Members of the House, Families, Children, and Seniors Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today, as well as the opportunity to appear virtually before you. My name is Whitney Gerbel, and I am the president of Bay Mills Indian Community, and I am appearing today on behalf of my tribe to ask your support for the passage of these bills to help protect tribal families. As was previously discussed, these bills amend the Guardianship Assistance Program, also known as GAP, so that tribal children in Michigan are eligible to participate in that program. Previous to this position, I did serve and have a tenure as tribal judge and chief judge for the Bay Mills Tribal Court. And during that time, I became very well aware of the permanent placement options for tribal children outside their homes is extremely difficult to achieve in the absence of financial support. GAP provides financial support for children appointed permanent guardianships in Michigan courts, but we have not seen that same type of parity in tribal courts. Guardians ultimately are appointed by a court, whether they be tribal or state court, to provide stable families for children whose biological parents may still be an extremely important part of their lives, but they're not able to be the current caretaker of those children. And as such, GAP was really designed to provide the necessary financial support for those guardians who are willing to care for children who could not be on their own until they reach adulthood, but are without the funds to do so. It's a really wonderful program, and it's also extremely consistent with the traditional teachings and cultural values of many of the tribes in Michigan, including my own. And for these reasons, tribal courts and tribal social services have started to raise awareness about the lack of access to GAP funds under their jurisdiction. We are looking for a way to support permanent placements of families, often with relatives, for children to their parents are not able to care for them for the foreseeable future, but that worthwhile objective cannot be achieved simply by establishing a guardianship for children. We currently have families who are under the jurisdiction of Bay Mills Tribal Court, as was identified by MDHHS, who have been waiting for these bills for years now. And they cannot pursue a guardianship without assistance. And we knew that if we push them into a guardianship, that if we force them to pursue one, that we would not only be failing the children who are seeking that guardianship, but we would be failing the family. And then ultimately we would be failing the objective of our court, which was to bring healing to this family and to bring stability despite ending up before tribal court due to unfortunate circumstances. These bills ultimately embody the recognition and respect for tribes throughout Michigan as sovereigns, they embody respect and recognition for our tribal court processes. And ultimately, they ensure that all services available to all other Michigan children are likewise available to tribal children. This outcome of these bills not only embodies good government relations, but it also ensures a better outcome for tribal children who suffer the disparities as identified by Chairman Stuck, and that may be stuck living in foster care until they become adults when there is actually permanent guardianships that are available to assist them. I do know that if this legislation does not pass, that there are children and families, not only underneath Bay Mills Tribal Court, but many other tribal courts, that will be forced to remain in foster care without the passage of these bills and without the financial assistance that comes with it. And that ultimately should not be an acceptable outcome. And so we're really looking forward to having this bill pass, being able to support our tribal families, support our tribal children. And I am just extremely grateful that this is being brought before this committee today, and want to thank you again for the opportunity to provide testimony. If there are any questions that you have about Bay Mills Indian community or about any of the processes that we have had to endure in the foster care process, I'm more than happy to take those questions at this time, and thank you again.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Are there any questions? Okay, well, we're all set. Thanks again. Here. And last, is this another Zoom? Yes, another Zoom. We have our good judge, Judge Jocelyn Fabry, joining us. There she is. Thank you so much for being with us on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ani Boujou. My name's Jocelyn Fabry, and I'm the Chief Judge for the Tribal Court for the Sault Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians. And again, Madam Chair, committee members, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and to do so by Zoom from up in the UP. I'm here on behalf of Sioux Tribe's nearly 50,000 tribal citizens, and also on behalf of the Michigan Indian Judges Association. As a tribal judge, I am asking for your support of Senate Bills 137 and 138 so that all children in the state of Michigan have the same access to the Guardianship Assistance Program, whether they're Michigan's tribal children or non-tribal children, and whether their case originated in a state court or a tribal court. As a tribal court judge, I have the privilege and the responsibility of presiding over our child abuse and neglect cases in our tribal court. Like many tribes, subsidized guardianships are the preferred method of permanency when reunification efforts with parents are unsuccessful. Permanent guardianships allow our court to finalize the legal relationship between the care providers and the child, provides the child with permanency and the comfort and understanding that comes with that, knowing they have a permanent home and a forever family, while at the same time not formally terminating the biological parent's rights, which is contrary to many tribes' cultural beliefs and traditions. Sioux Tribe works actively to place our children with relatives and other families within our own community. And guardianship subsidies provide the financial support for these families that's needed to care for them until they turn age 18. As a practical matter, many families cannot afford to step into a guardianship role without the additional assistance provided by this program. As you heard both Chair Stuck and President Gravel discuss, many times our kiddos come to us with very complex needs. That's the reason they have entered into the foster care system. And the reality is many of their caregiving relatives are older, aunties, grandparents. And so the benefits afforded by this subsidy are critical to achieving successful permanency for those kids. Unfortunately, as you're aware now, when the law creating the guardianship subsidy program was first passed, it did not consider how Native families might be impacted in Michigan. The current law only allows children and their guardians access to the guardianship assistance program resources if their case originated in a state of Michigan court rather than a tribal court. And as you are also aware, Michigan is home to 12 federally recognized tribes, each one operating robust court systems as integral parts of our tribal governments. However, as currently written, tribal children and families who are also citizens of Michigan, whose cases are in tribal court, are not eligible for the guardianship subsidy program. We know here at Sioux Tribe of at least 13 of our tribal children and many other Native families around the state who are currently impacted by this oversight in the law. What that means for those families is that every 90 days, when their case comes up for review in front of me, I'm left explaining to them this funding inconsistency to the children and their foster families who are essentially put in the position of having to choose between having a case linger in the court system as a foster care case so they can continue to receive foster care payments, or to proceed to a permanent guardianship, which will provide permanency to the child but wouldn't come with any financial assistance. This is a choice that only the families of tribal children who are involved in tribal court have to face in Michigan. These bills are needed so that Michigan's Native American children can benefit from the guardianship assistance on an equal basis, and so that more of Michigan's children can be permanently placed with guardians rather than lingering in foster care. I also want to note there will not be any increased cost to the state by expanding eligibility of this program to Native children. When any child is placed into a foster home, the state of Michigan is helping pay for that care. This would only ensure that tribal children are able to access the same guardianship assistance resources as any other child in the state. So again, I urge you to quickly pass these bills to correct what we believe was an honest oversight in the law, but one that is having a significant effect on our tribal families. I too have cases lingering in my court for now going on years waiting for this legislation to pass so that we can finalize guardianships and give permanency to these children. The passage will help ensure that Michigan's tribal children enjoy that same level of permanency that non-tribal children do, and that their guardians will have the financial resources they deserve to support them. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my tribe and Mi'kmaq, Miigwech, for your time and consideration this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. We appreciate you so much. I know you just, when your closing statements, you talked about being able to close out some of your cases. About how many would you say that remain open? Do you have an estimate?
Yes, we have about 13 cases in my court, 13 separate tribal children who are we're just lingering the case in foster care, hoping we can move to a guardianship, but can't do that until this legislation is passed.
Got it. Well, this is National Foster Care Awareness Month, and so let's try to get this out the door on the House side and over to the Senate side to finish it up and get it to the governor. We do have a question from Representative Fox.
A totally unrelated question, but is that a sandhill crane in your image behind you there?
It is.
Okay, that's one of my favorite birds. Thank you.
They're all out and about right now. It's pretty busy up here.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Representative Kofia?
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually not sure who to direct this question to, but of the 12 federally recognized tribes, one of them is in my district, or we are in their ancestral lands, the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. So my first question, it sounds like they would be in support. They weren't listed here, so I just wanted to double check. And also a question, if anyone knows, how many cases of Grand Traverse Band children might also benefit from this, if those stats are available. That's okay. If not, I'll check with my tribal council.
They do support it.
Okay. Well, we do know
Thank
they
you,
support it.
Miigwech.
Thank you for that, Chairman. Okay. Very good. Very good. So if there aren't any other questions or comments, thank you so much, Judge, for being here with us on today. They move quick, don't they? She was like, and she disappeared instantly. Thank you, click. Okay. So we have a few cards we want to read in support. We have Melina Brand, National Association of Social Workers in support. Eric Rodriguez, Saginaw Chippewa Tribe in support. We have Scott Breslin, the Saginaw Chippewa Tribe in support. And we have Rachel Richards, Michigan League for Public Policy, in support of the bill. No one submitted any cards in opposition. If they did, I wouldn't have took, no, I'm teasing. I try to keep things light around here, but no, we're grateful for everyone's testimony on today. And I think there being no further business, I need a motion. We don't have any excused members today, so we're good with that. There being no further business of the Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now. Okay, you're looking at me like I'm doing something. I'm like, Lord, look, we're excited. This was our first time taking testimony on bills. This is our first one, so just a little excited about that. There being no further business before the Committee on Family, Children, and Seniors will stand adjourned.